So Brian brought up a really, really cool point. I want to make sure you guys hear it. It's outside the scope of 244, but it's definitely within the scope of like useful research statistics. So as you read through this, hopefully you tried to realize I was trying to minimize any kind of bias I possibly could. Rory, I heard you talking about it, how when you would put your hand down, you would wait a second or two before. Now, why did you do that?
See, she's really feeling my energy.
Oh, okay, okay, good, to control it in that way, to make sure if your hand is emanating it, it was actually going to be picked up. Good. I thought you were going to say to make sure that there was any kind of wind or that might give away, right?
That was first. Then it was energy.
Then it was okay, cool.
Really looking for energy.
So one that you can measure, one that you could measure with like a velocity, one you couldn't measure the velocity. And I was trying to control for that as much as I could in the instructions. That's why I wanted you all to use the exact same question, above which of your hands is my hand. That way there's no bias question like, hey, can you feel this in your right hand? You know, obviously I don't want that kind of a question, right? We don't want that kind of a question, unless you're being completely consistent with it. Which you wouldn't want that anyway, because you're inadvertently biased. But then Brian brings up that even, it was position, right?
Right.
Where you were.
So I would,
Car?
like, I realized I would be stepping in towards the side that I had my hand over. So what I decided to do was I would step to the opposite side of what I was going to
I'm
do.
going to screw with him now.
And
Yeah.
my voice would be on the opposite side of what hand I had over
Very
his,
interesting.
and he would always pick the side I had my voice on.
Uh-huh. Little biases we don't even realize we're doing that might give away the farm.
We just sat.
Sat facing each other, sitting down.
Yeah, so that
Not moving other than your hand. Yeah, and that is kind of the idea of what I was trying to set up, but it's cool that all this little, you don't realize you're doing these things, right? Little tiny subconscious or superconscious, whatever it is. I mentioned, if you guys haven't read the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, it's a fantastic read on this topic. I mentioned to Brian the Cato Kalin O.J. Simpson case back, it's been 20 plus years now, I think, right? 20 years. There was a witness, Cato Kalin, who was I think he was the groundskeeper of the Simpson estate, I think. But there's a famous scene that's mentioned in the Blink book about how we give these little verbal or visual clues without realizing it. And he's being cross-examined by, I think, the prosecuting attorney. And apparently the prosecuting attorney, now it's been 20 years since I've seen this thing, and I don't remember everything that happened, but he was being kind of aggressive towards Kalin, but Kalin never got flustered. He was like this total hey man, you know, total you might remember him if you don't Google him. He's like this little tiny beach bum, you know. But if you watch the videotape of that cross-examination, at one point Kalin leans forward, and if you slow that frame down, there's one split microsecond where he snarls like a dog and then goes back to being calm again, and that was just his mind superseding what his conscious actions are doing and letting out what he's really feeling. And the thing is, we do that all the time. How many times have you read somebody's face? They're having a bad day and you've nailed it because their eyes aren't quite as bright, right? Or their mouth's a little bit too downturned. And then Brian asked a great question. Is there like a field of study about that? Yes. And it's mentioned in that book. He has an entire chapter devoted to that. They have I think 36 or 64 or something little indicators that are metricable. And that's where it gets cool. That's where statistics gets cool, because you actually then can measure things like amount of lip change or amount of eye opening based on 100% or something like that. It's really, really interesting. So I was trying as best we could to metric this. Now it's hard, because an eye opening is easy. The eyes are open, the eyes are closed, or they're somewhere between 0 and 1. Here it's like, where's the field, right? Where's the field? Can we somehow touch that? And I'm not saying this experiment isn't fraught with problems, but I tried to minimize them as much as possible. How many of you guys was your dominant hand also the hand that you used to throw a baseball or write with? Okay, only about half of you. The other half, it was the other hand, yeah? Yeah, mine too. My left hand was my energy dominant hand, but I throw right-handed, I write right-handed. So that's, who knows? And again, that whole bit about the crossing the hands and clasping it, I read that. I have no idea the science behind it. That's just what's commonly accepted.
Try to make yourself cross it the other way. It feels really
It does feel weird. Yeah, it feels weird. That feels weird. If you try to go the other way, it's like that's not right.
Yeah.
That's not right. Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't feel right. It has to be that way. You have to put them somewhere they shouldn't be, right? And then the idea is it's metricable, right? So that's why I want to collect our data now and chit-chat about this before we're going to break. We'll break about 5 minutes later. I want to finish this quiz up first. Let's collect our results, and let's see what they come up looking like. And I want to use this as a kind of a final look at t-intervals. And I shouldn't say that. It's not final. We're never done with this stuff. It's just a final look at only t-intervals before we move on to the next step.
Can
So
we
let's
just
go-
have a
oh, go ahead.
disclaimer that our data was skewed because it was quiet up there for about 30 seconds and then everybody started coming out.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Well, yeah, and what's interesting is, this experiment's replicated many, many different places. I decided to do some research into the testing of this, and apparently it was done, including by a 9-year-old girl for a science fair, which is great. And we can share that result later on, too. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to see the results of it all. But yes, you can totally share that disclaimer, and I've got historical data, and hopefully with the hundreds of data points we had, a couple data points won't get too skewed. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna break it down. We're not gonna look at percentage. Oh, Sean, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, you are looking for that skew. If you got someone like a 10 out of 10, you found a psychic individual.
Sure,
You know,
but-
you know what I'm saying?
No, you're the man, except,
The outlier is what you're looking for.
right, unless there was a non-sampling error in the experiment, which I think is what Elizabeth's getting at, right? We could, if there was a non-sampling error that caused a 10 out of 10, then we gotta go back and say, we have to throw that one out, because it was because their eye was winked open or something, like they could actually see where the hand was. Right, the idea is if you can control for every other variable except the feeling of the field, yes, the 10 might be significant. It might also be anecdotal, but it might be significant. But if it was due to, again, I bring this up again, this is why Harrison Ford was running from the one-armed man and the fugitive, right? If it was bad data, then you're gonna have to jump off the train, and go swim into the river. I mean, you're right.
You jump off the dam.
Hit him off a dam. It's a great scene. Crazy. Anyway, let's collect data. Raise your hand if you fell into the category. Did anybody never get the right hand correct? Usually nobody gets that one. Okay, anybody get it correct one time out of 10? 1. There we go. Beautiful. 2 times out of 10, we got the correct. 2. Or excuse me, go in there. 3 times out of 10. Who do we got? 3 times out of 10. 1, 2. Oh, just raise your hand if you fell into there.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, there we go. So we got 1, 2, 3 of those.
Yeah.
All right. 4.
Yeah, it's sick.
4. 1, 2, 3. Roy, is that you too? No, just me. 5.
I'll be 2%.
5. 1, 2, 3. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 7. 1, 2. 8. 1, 2. 9. 1. And all 10. Okay, we got our data. Let's go to our machines. L1, L2, yes? Although you're probably getting an idea what it looks like already just by seeing it up on the board. Let's go to our machines. L1, L2, yes. Yes, maybe, perhaps. I'm going to get it entered in as well. Oh, look how pretty that is.
How do you clear the site again?
So you're in your list, right, Linda?
Yeah.
Just go up to the top, press clear, and then she'll be on top of the list name. You can't really see that line. Hang on.
I can just see. We count that.
It's a little bit better, I think. I'm a whole lot of white.
Got it.
You got it. Okay, awesome. Let me do this. That's a little better. Oh, that's much better. All right. And then throw a histogram up too. Take a look at it. In case you need a better eye, better look. In case you need a better look. Very good from yesterday, it looks like. Oops. Oh wait, I gotta turn my other plots off. That's right. Not bad. What a finagle though. I get that. Let's get this out of the way.
What kind of that?
I just did a histogram. Sir,
Telling me invalid.
invalid. Hang on one second. That window looks fine. It's not a window error. It's going to be a graph error. I know what your problem is. It was the you had 3 plots turned on, Brandon, and guaranteed the other 2 were calling from lists that are now empty. This constantly happens. If you get an invalid dim error, it means that you probably have 3 plots turned on from last time, if I remember correctly. I'm gonna turn those. From the Y equals screen, if you unhighlight them like that,
Okay.
then you just go zoom. There you go. There's your box plot. I like what you guys are doing. Yours doesn't look like. Oh, I finagled. So Ben, when you press zoom 9, you get that.
No.
You don't get that. Are you making sure? Ooh, does it look like a rectangle?
It's got, no. It's
Okay,
just-
let me slow things down here. Second y equals.
Yeah.
Second y equals down on the plot menu. Go ahead and grab that number 1. Make sure it looks like this. This is key right here. You got to make sure your frequencies are indicated in L2. Otherwise, you're going to get a uniform distribution, which means that one person got a 0, one person got a 1, one person got a 2, one person, and so forth and so on. So then you don't want that, because that gives us a false sense of center. Well, actually, I should say a false sense of variation. The center is actually pretty close. And you know what, though? Now that we're in here, you guys gave me an idea. I saw you guys having box plots. I'm going to slap a box plot up on top of this thing, too, just for grids. So I'm going to turn plot 2 on. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm just going to do it because why the hell not? I mean, you'll see in a second why I'm doing this. I'm going to mess with the window again. I did, to see if there were any. Yes, Sean, thank you. It's exactly what I'm doing. Is I'm trying to see if there are any goofy outlier data points. So here's your histogram. And there's a box plot. Here's the window I'm using if you guys, I mean, I tend to, I use Zoom 9. Zoom 9's like my helicopter that's flying the Marines to the battle site. And then my window button is the Marines themselves going in and finding the bad guy. I don't know how else to describe it other than that. So the Zoom 9 gets me close. And then the window button allows me to finagle and kind of dial it in. Because Zoom 9, if you looked at what I just had, the box plot was on top of the histogram. That makes me upset. I don't want to see it. I want to see them separated from each other. One thing to notice, is anybody upset as to why this is X max is 11 and not 10? Does that upset anybody?
No.
Good! I've taught you, we learned that in 243, you have to do that to get that one extra bar, otherwise you'll lose it. And we didn't need that bar because there was nobody in 10. But nonetheless, by doing that, the space for 10 is maintained. It's over here. So here's the folks that got it right 0 times, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, and 10 times. Brian, what's on your mind? Just taking it all in.
Yeah, I was-
Okay, awesome. I just see motion. I jump. Okay, I apologize. So now, this is discrete data, correct? Number of times you got something right. But I still want to look at the average of the results, not the percentage of the results. I want to look at the average number of times. We can look at it percentage-wise. It's going to be a very similar result. But I want to stick with this idea of average. So, what do you think the average should be